What the hell am I doing talking about a movie on my music reaction channel, you might ask? Well, it's nearly 2022. Let's mix it up a little bit. Spider-Man No Way Home. That is a movie that mixes things up. Listen, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review. So I actually don't think there's any other way of doing it. So I would say, if you've not seen this movie, and you want to see this movie and you don't want to know anything about it, don't watch this video. So this, the third John Watts Spider-Man movie, not the third movie that Tom Holland has been Spider-Man in, but it's very hard to keep track of all the Marvel movies, and guess what? It's going to get a lot more complicated now. But what he's brought to the character and what director John Watts and everybody involved has kind of brought back to the franchise is what I loved about it in the first place. Listen, I'm nearly 40 years old. Spider-Man is a character that I've grown up with since I was little. Spider-Man was the guy, and he hasn't really been the guy. Even all the way back pre-MCU, he wasn't really the guy. Batman was kind of the guy in cinema for a long time. Don't yell at me, I'm not trying to say Batman's anything to do with Marvel. I'm just talking about cinematic superheroes. But Spider-Man No Way Home, to me, kind of re-cements Spider-Man as the centerpiece of the Marvel universe, of the superhero universe. And I kind of like to see my guy back on top, because he was always my guy. This movie, as I'm sure you know because you've seen it, because I said turn it off if you haven't seen it, brings back the previous Peter Parkers from the other Spider-Man movies. Really confused my 10-year-old boy, because he's not seen any of those old movies. He's only seen the Tom Holland one. And likewise, he didn't know who any of the enemies were that were brought back in, from Willem Dafoe to Alfred Molina, Jamie Foxx, etc., etc. I was worried that this film was just going to play that kind of like, remember when this happened? Remember when this happened? Nostalgia bullshit that we see so much in films and TV these days. And I must admit, when Doc Ock appeared on the bridge early on in the film, and it was quite a thrilling moment, we'd seen clips from it from the trailers.
Hello, Peter.
And then immediately they started like poking fun at his character.
What's your name again?
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
And he was dispatched very quickly by Spider-Man. I was thinking, they're going to whore out all these old characters, all these old moments from these old movies for a few cheap gags, and it's just going to be a nostalgia. They really fucked it. And to be honest, for about 40 minutes I was worried. I was really worried. But then the film flips. Then the film really starts to take on some emotional consequences, and it basically happens when Willem Dafoe is fucking terrific in the movie, isn't he? My goodness. When he turns inside Happy's apartment, and then we get, you know, the turn of the other bad guys, and then obviously ending with Aunt May passing away. And that moment really just gave the film a completely different type of energy, but also gave Spider-Man that sense of loss, that sense of grief, that sense of guilt that is so central to the character, that was a part of the character that I knew before I even really understood the consequences of it, from reading the comics and even the cartoon back, all the way back, way before Tobey Maguire, and obviously formed the beginning of the other two versions of this franchise that we've seen in cinema recently. And from there, the film just goes from strength to strength as a showcase of these basically amazing performers. I would say the story and the way it's constructed with the multiverse stuff, bringing stuff in, I reckon you could go through it and pick holes in it quite easily. Like, the most obvious one was, where the fuck was everybody else who might know who Peter Parker is? Why is it only conveniently the people who have been in other films? Whatever, it doesn't matter. We kind of all know what we signed up for. But just the way that the performances hold this thing together, you just really have to take your hat off to it. Willem Dafoe, terrific. Alfred Molina, terrific. I think special mention has to go to the Spider-Mans as well. When they were all brought together, you did think, okay, is this just going to be a few gags? Is this going to be something that doesn't really land on screen for very long? But no. Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are there as proper characters for a good chunk of the movie, and the chemistry between the three is excellent. Now, I really liked Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, because to me that was the Peter Parker I always had in my mind from the comics and the cartoon when I was young. A guy that had a little bit more, like, Tobey Maguire was always a little bit too nerdy for me. He was just a little bit too lame. Peter Parker to me had always been someone a little bit smarter, a little bit snappier with his comebacks. And Andrew Garfield, I think, nailed that. And I like to see that now in a much better film than the films that he was in. He's really just allowed to shine. Some great one-liners, some great chemistry with the other Spider-Men, the other Peter Parkers. And one moment as well where he saves MJ when she falls and gets his redemption after previously mentioning that he failed to save Gwen. Just the performance, just the shot on his face, really powerful, really strong. And again, this is a movie mainly about performances, and we have to give a shout out to Tom Holland for his performance in this film. Not only so live, so physical, doing the stunts and the flips and everything like that, his comic timing perfect, his charisma, we've seen that in the previous movies, but when he was called upon in this film to hit those emotional moments, we've seen it previously in the Avengers where, you know, he started to fucking blip, and that moment will live forever in cinema. The moment where Aunt May dies in this film is terrifically sad. I mean, you could hear people all around me in the auditorium crying. It was just silence, apart from people sort of sniffing up tears. A woman next to me was in bits, and, you know, a couple of tears rolled down my cheek. I'm not going to try and pretend that they didn't. And it was because of Tom Holland's performance in that moment, the camera just holding on his face, so good, like drawing from, I don't know, pain in his own life or something. Just terrific acting, like really the top level of acting. And to have that level of substance in your acting at that age is amazing. And everything else he brings to the role and other roles that he's in, what a guy, man. What an actor. And I think it's because of those performances and because of the ability for these actors to really capture moments very, very quickly on camera. They're not this, you know, a lot happens in this movie. A fucking lot happens in this movie, but the actors are so good that it keeps delivering moment after moment. Now, is the movie perfect? I don't think it is. Like I say, you can definitely pick holes in it from a plot, from a sort of logic point of view. The stuff with Doctor Strange, I'm sure there's people who are really kind of invested in the Marvel Universe and all the intertwining stories who can really pull this apart, I think. But to me, what I found strange is the movie's a little bit COVID-y. It's a little bit pandemic-y. And what I mean by that, when I think about a Spider-Man movie, I think about, you know, bustling city streets. There's people everywhere in these movies. Think about New York in Homecoming. Think about Venice or London in Far From Home. Here is a very empty movie, and I get the impression that that was the only way they could kind of get it made. So much of it takes place at the Statue of Liberty with basically nobody apart from the lead actors around. There are a couple of street scenes, but it is kind of an empty... It's like, where the fuck is everybody, man? Where's everyone gone? Spider-Man, nobody about. But considering that, these powerhouse performances just deliver the whole time. Some magic as well from the CG, from the effects team. The scene with Doctor Strange where he takes him into the mirror world, incredible, just visually mind-blowing. Just such a thoroughly entertaining... It just delivered. Do you know what it did? It really delivered on a really difficult premise. It didn't let the fans down, man. Whether the fans of the older movies, whether the fans of the MCU, whether they want to see what's happening next. And you know what? If you're going to get invested in a whole new cycle of the MCU and this multiverse bollocks and all this stuff that you've got to really pay attention to, they're expecting you to watch all the TV shows, which are hours and hours and hours. I don't really like watching the TV shows. They take too long. All of these movies, kind of watch behind the scenes stuff and try and keep track of all this madness. It was difficult enough before with the Thanos stuff. If you're going to do that, I think that you really need to be hanging your hat on someone like Spider-Man to carry you through all of that. Listen, I'm always going to be kind of up and down on those movies, but when they hit, when they deliver, whether it's this, whether it's an Endgame, Civil War, you know, the really, really strong ones, not a lot else can kind of match that combination of spectacle and drama and genuine human emotion as well, which has always helped because they get the fucking most amazing actors to be in these movies. So, guys, I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys did too. I hope I didn't spoil it for you. I did warn you. And if you want to see more movie coverage, TV coverage from me, it may be on this channel, it may be on a second channel. 2022 is going to be interesting. Just let me know down in the comments. And of course, if you are new, subscribe. It's mainly music though, I will warn you. All right, peace.